everybody, and welcome to another episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad, and I am joined by my brother Rob.
¿Cómo estás?
Yes, muy bien. We turn first to the world of geek news, where we will each share our favorite story of the week, and we will start with you, Rob.
Well, my story for this week is pretty much everybody can see this one coming. The release of Grand Theft Auto 4. Mm-hmm. This is the big one, the one that most people have been waiting for since the 360 and the PS3 first came out.
Yeah, let's tell the audience your buying story here.
I go out the 29th, Tuesday. I have a little free time between finals. And I'm like, okay, I'll go see if EB has it. Walk right in. The first thing I say to the guy is, GTA 4 360.
Right.
And he goes, did you pre-order it? And I said, nope. And he says, sorry, I don't have any copies for you. And then he gives me the doomsday speech. He's like, it's completely sold out all up and down the street. Mm-hmm. I walk out. I go over to Blockbuster, and I buy it there.
Yeah, that's what cracked me up, is that you just went to Blockbuster, and I didn't even realize they sell video games.
Exactly. I mean, they've started doing this now, and the funny thing was the guy who I bought it there was just completely nonchalant about it. I was like, I bring the box up, and I'm like, can I buy this? And he's like, yeah, sure, all right, here you go. And then also, the guy at Blockbuster gave me this free picture frame with Nikolai standing in front of Liberty City with a shotgun. And that came free with the game. No extra, special edition price or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It was just like, all right, thanks for shopping at Blockbuster. Here's this extra thing.
I bought mine at Target, and they had a couple copies left. I actually got the last one, so it was a little surprising. But, I mean, this is a huge game, so what do you expect? But, yeah, them telling you that all of Main Street or whatever was out of it, I mean, that's just a tactic and unfortunate hazard of their business model. I've said it before. It's a video game store that's constantly sold out of video games. Don't go there.
Yeah. It's true. So, yes, so I got the game, Brad got the game, Matt got the game, and we're all now playing it, and you can expect our impressions on it next week.
Yeah, a lot of people might wonder why aren't we doing it this week, and that's because we're recording this on Thursday. The game came out Tuesday, and to have 2 days with a game and then try to tell people what you think of it, I think it's unfair, and I think it might create a false impression of the game. So we're going to give ourselves that extra week to really kind of savor it and enjoy, and then all we're going to do is bring you our impressions, but we'll look forward to talking about that next week.
Should be exciting.
And so moving on to my favorite story of the week, and I want to try to tackle this in a different way. Last week we had probably our surliest episode ever. Let's try to do this as positively as possible.
Okay.
The Hobbit movie has a director, finally, and that director is Guillermo del Toro. There was a toss-up between Sam Raimi, who directed Army of Darkness, Spider-Man, Peter Jackson, who everybody knows from Lord of the Rings, and Guillermo del Toro, who's done Pan's Labyrinth. And so Guillermo del Toro just secured it. Interesting news, and on top of that also, for me, a surprise was the news that it will be 2 films. The first will be the actual Hobbit story, and the second will supposedly cover the 60-year gap between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
A story that was not written by Tolkien, that will apparently be done as a film. So that is a surprise, and Del Toro says he plans to use less CG than Peter Jackson. He's a fan of animatronic effects, and he said there's advances in that field that I guess we haven't seen a whole lot of because of all the CG. Mm-hmm. So he's gonna try to do that. So first, let's look at the bright side of this story. I love The Hobbit, and I have fond memories of reading the novel when I had chicken pox and Mom was putting calamine lotion on me and blow drying it.
I mean, The Hobbit's being made into a movie. That's great.
Yeah, and we've got exciting subject matter. We've got an exciting director, and yet there's that nagging desire to diss what we've never seen. And I gotta say, is this too late? Is this unnecessary?
Oh, no, I'm excited about that. I actually think Guillermo del Toro is a really good director, albeit maybe he works with some questionable subject matter, but The Hobbit is in no way questionable.
Right.
And I'm pretty excited about what he can provide for that, the type of grim vision of fantasy that he tends to lean towards.
Yeah. The part from The Hobbit in the little flashback at the beginning of Fellowship, I was just geeking out because I was like, oh, that's the part where he finds the ring.
I do know fans of Tolkien who actually prefer Smaug the dragon to Sauron.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's more of a direct threat, and a lot more of a scary villain, if you will, rather than a mysterious villain.
Right.
Really, the Lord of the Rings owes its life to The Hobbit.
Right.
And so The Hobbit being made into a movie is just, exciting stuff. And I think Guillermo del Toro is definitely able hands to give this project to.
Mm-hmm. And now, speaking of Guillermo del Toro, we will move on to our main topic of discussion this week, which revolves around a movie that he produced. This week, we watched the DVD release of The Orphanage, which is a Spanish horror film, and it was directed by Juan Antonio Bayona, probably butchering that as well. But the subject matter here is a woman named Laura, and her husband Carlos, who live in an orphanage where she lived as a child, and the couple wants to turn the house into a home for disabled children, and then they discover that their son Simone has an imaginary friend, and as we know in horror films, that's rarely a good thing. So I will ask you, Rob, what did you think of The Orphanage, or El Orfanato?
El Orfanato is muy bien.
Cool.
It's definitely worth renting, I'll say that much. I have a few reservations for it that might prevent me from giving it the full buy it recommendation.
Okay.
But this is definitely a strong recommendation for a rental, as long as you don't mind reading subtitles.
Right.
And you're in the mood for a horror movie.
Yeah.
So there it is. Pros and cons. All right. Pros. Well, the thing I liked about the movie definitely lies in the directing of it, and you can see Guillermo del Toro's stamp on this movie and his kind of apprentice director that he's presenting here.
Right. Yeah.
And good directing. The thing about it is that it's so crystal clear. You don't even realize often when it's going on.
Right.
It doesn't have all the kind of flashy special effects and animatronics. This is actually a pretty simple ghost story as far as special effects are concerned, which in a way I very much prefer.
Right.
If you look at these J-horror movies that are coming out, which are just riddled with special effects, and a lot of those special effects aren't so much scary as they are cheesy.
Right.
This movie does a great job of just using subtle imagery and things like that to upset you, So, I mean, it's great, and I feel like the quote-unquote monster reveal is handled very elegantly, unlike, say, I Am Legend, where it was just like, what? Oh, crap, there it is, I have to say, I mean, this is kind of a personal note of geeky enjoyment. It reminded me of watching an adventure game. Something like The 11th Hour, or like one of those more like frightening adventure games, like Alone in the Dark, because there are rules that are set up in this movie.
Right.
There are clues that you have to piece together. You have this seemingly innocuous object, but that means something more, and you have to figure out what it means.
Right. Yeah.
This movie is actually, I would say, more parts mystery than it is horror. My cons are that there are a lot of cliches in this movie that are
creepy
used.
Kids.
Yeah.
What is it about creepy kids, by the way? It's not going away anytime soon, so I guess Hollywood figures it's making a buck. We'll keep doing it, but are children inherently scary? What is the deal here?
A lot of people think that it's kind of has to deal with innocence, is what I hear, is that children are
not supposed to be
so
creepy.
Innocent. Yeah, whenever you have the concept of a corrupted child, it's trampling on sacred ground. And like we talked about how a lot of this starts off with kind of the kid playing with his imaginary friends.
Tomas.
Which, again, kind of a cliche. but actually handled rather elegantly. You know, again, so props to the director for kind of overcoming this.
Right.
A lot of people sometimes can wonder, you know, do kids actually have a sixth sense? Right. Because their minds haven't conformed to the world. They're free and open to whatever floats in there, and so something is bound to be picked up by them that an adult who's kind of jaded isn't going to notice. Yeah, the cliches, I mean, creepy kids is one thing. Not to spoil much, but what is the deal with drivers in horror movies?
They're not very good. They're
not very good. Even apparently professional drivers, people who drive buses and ambulances and fire trucks. I'll just leave it at that.
And their vehicles make no sound as they're approaching people, apparently. In this sea of J-horror that America is caught up in right now, it's refreshing, actually, to see this kind of Spanish take on horror. Right.
So definitely check it out for a rental.
Yeah, I think I pretty much echo most of what you said there. The suspense aspect of it, I thought, was definitely refreshing, like you said. There are so many of these torture films, and I'm not into any of that stuff. I prefer just sort of like the things that get under your skin. So I definitely recommend it. However, I will say, and Amber agreed, if someone was trying to decide on a movie like this to see, I would first recommend The Others, which is also suspense rather than horror, and it I think did a little bit of a better job than this one. But having said that, I mean, it was scary. One other con about the film is that I felt that it was a bit of a downer. The subject matter, without giving too much away, I did feel that it was a little depressing, more depressing so than some films like this. So for that reason, I would also caution people. But overall, a very decent, I don't know if he's a first-time director, but a very decent effort from this director. And one well worth checking out. So it sounds like that's two biens or muy biens for El Orfanato, the orphanage.
Yeah.
So before we close out our show, we'd like to pop in our Billy Joel cassette tape, lip sync Uptown Girl in front of our parents, and enjoy a little nostalgia. This week I want to ask, hey, whatever happened to video game mascots? There was a time in the 80s, early 90s maybe, where if you didn't have a mascot, you were not worth your salt as a video game console. And I want to ask you, Rob, first of all, what was your favorite video game mascot, and then where are they today?
I can remember when Mario was huge, and there was actually a news story about how more kids knew who Mario was than they knew who Mickey Mouse was.
Right.
But for whatever reason, just Sonic resonated more with me. I guess it was just his bad attitude and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the time when the mascot meant something.
Right.
Just as in how sports teams have their mascots who kind of represent that team and fight with other mascots and other teams.
Right.
Sonic was important because for the first time Mario had a contender.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so probably that's why Sonic is more vivid to me as a mascot, because he really stood out as, you know, a fighter against Mario, you know.
He was like the opposite of Mario, because Mario was a slow, kind of happy plumber, and he was super fast, and he wore those cool tennis shoes. So, of course, he was a rebel.
Yeah.
And, you know, the advertising from Sega was very kind of in-your-face and competitive.
Right. The sad news is that franchise has really fallen to the wayside, most poignantly with Sonic the Hedgehog for the 360 and the PlayStation 3. Awful game. Just, you know, play that game if you like to fall off cliffs a lot.
Literally, yeah, the first 5 seconds of the demo, I shot off a cliff. And I thought, okay, well, that can't be the whole game. Tried it, kept shooting off cliffs. It was like, it's broken.
But that being said, I think there was enough of a backlash against that Sonic is starting to be picked up again as a serious thing. Sonic's biggest revival these days is definitely in Sonic Rush for the DS and Sonic Rush Part 2. And somebody has now just started showing screens of the next major Sonic release for the next-gen consoles. And it looks to me like this thing is going to be a Rails platformer.
Right.
And that to me is like, yes, you know.
Yeah. Do you think mascots are even important anymore? Does the system need a mascot anymore, or is that just sort of like old hat?
Well, absolutely. I mean, especially something like Smash Brothers really flexes the muscle that mascots and kind of the franchises attached to them have. Part of me would really love to see the return of Crash Bandicoot exclusively for the PlayStation 3, you know?
Well, yeah, and now, gosh, that's the sad story for me. And this is I have two answers to this question. One is the real one, and one is the cheating one. But the real one is Crash Bandicoot for me, because he was just... I remember the Christmas when I literally walked in to Toys R Us, and there was an N64 with Mario, a PlayStation with Crash Bandicoot, and a Saturn with Knights on it. And it was basically the battle of these three mascots. And as I saw the PlayStation evolve, all I could think was, I can't wait to see, when PlayStation 2 comes out, the fully realistic Crash Bandicoot. You know, the equivalent of the Mario Galaxy or whatever for the PlayStation. And sadly, Crash Bandicoot became a multi-platform thing, just like Sonic has, where he doesn't represent the PlayStation anymore. And at one time, he did. He was, you know? And that makes me so sad, because I would have loved to have seen the Crash Bandicoot where you see every hair on him, you know, bristling in the breeze or something, running through that jungle, hootiga, or whatever, you know, rutabiga. My fake answer, my cheating answer, is that my favorite mascot of recent years is Jay Allard. The Xbox 360, yeah. You mentioned Master Chief is the Xbox mascot, but when the Xbox 360 came out, this guy was sort of the face of the 360 to me.
Yeah.
It's rumored that Microsoft transformed him from a balding programmer geek to this hip leather jacket wearing, you know, trendy guy. And if you look at the before and after, it's certainly a case to be made there. But I miss seeing him discussing his excitement about the 360, because he was really, I think, one of the reasons why that's such a good system, and why it's uncommonly good, especially for Microsoft, in its design, because he really pushed for certain things. So Jay Allard is my cheating answer for a video game mascot, but one reason I was excited about the 360.
Yeah, I think his mascot status was kind of affirmed whenever he appeared in the video game Space Giraffe, albeit in a kind of subliminal way.
Right.
But it showed him as a video game personality, that somebody who, I bet you, if you donned a shirt with Jay Allard's face on it, you would get some like high fives in the streets from the geek community. Right. Just because of who he is and kind of what he represents.
Everybody misses this guy, you know. It's like, Jay, we want you back, you know. It's like it was just that short period of time, and if you watch, he only did like one E3. So yeah, if you're out there somewhere, send us an email. Let us know how you're doing.
Oh yeah, I think that's just the thing. Is a lot of people try to tailor make mascots. You know, they really try and find out what formula will create a mascot. Right. They have to be just a prominent figure at an important part in that system's development or in that game's development.
Yeah.
In order for them to be a true mascot.
You're absolutely right. I think Mario is not a great idea necessarily as a character. He's a plumber, you know, with a mustache. But it's the point at which he entered the scene, which instantly sticks in all of our minds as the milestone of video gaming, home video gaming. You know, it's like, that's the guy. I remember that guy.
It's always something fun to find a figure to rally behind, and so when it happens, it's great. And
when it doesn't, it's Polygon Man.
Exactly.
And if you, out there listening, would like to send us an email about your favorite video game mascots, you may do so.
Jay Allard.
That's right. We're waiting for you, Jay. Our email address is mail@growing-up-geek.com. Don't forget those dashes, ladies. I don't know why it's ladies, but for some reason it is today. And we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. Once again, my name is Brad.
And I'm Blasto.
And we'll catch you next week.